Every day I'm rising to my inner vision.
Welcome to the Unknown Tribe, Palmaïa's channel, where we interview all the most amazing people that come through our resort. I'm Alex, I'm the founder of Palmaïa and your host. And today we have with us Charlie Rocket. Amazing to see you, brother, here with us, visiting again. Charlie is what are you, dude? It's like producer, philanthropist, writer. You've got a lot of lives in your hood, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
Why don't you tell us a bit how you started life, right? Early on, like school, what you did, and how you got into, because I think your first big thing was music, right?
That's right.
Tell me about that. That sounds amazing.
Well, first of all, I'm a dreamer first. And that's why I think I've lived a few lives, because I don't have one dream. I have so many. And I actually believe in like a very delusional way that I can do everything.
Well,
not anything.
the power of manifestation.
Yeah. And I'll literally write in my notebook all my dreams. And in my life, it's been so magical that so many of them have come true. Everything from being able to take a moment in middle school when all the kids were singing a song and I didn't know the words and I felt very left out. And one of the kids one day had a magazine, like a music magazine. They said, "Do you know who that is?" I was like, "No." And then they started making fun of me a little bit, but not like in a bad way, but just like, "You don't know who that is?" And I was like, "No." And I declared to myself, I said, "I'm not just going to know who these people are. I'm going to create stars."
Yeah.
And I went on to the music industry and won a Grammy, and then I've won an Emmy, and I became a really big influencer, which is weird.
Yeah. How did you get into the music industry though? Because everyone, like, we all start in our businesses, right? And
yeah.
normally it's like kind of weird, like sort of set of circumstances and coincidences and maybe a bit of luck or whatever it is in life or destiny that suddenly makes something click and boof, you take this journey, right?
There were these kids at my school and they had these club jackets on, and it was almost like a rap gang.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Atlanta. Where hip hop is just this what everybody does. And I looked at their jackets and my eyes lit up and I was like, I want to be a part of that. The music stuff is so cool to me. And so I wanted to find a way to give value.
Yeah.
So I asked my mom for a camcorder for Christmas. And I wanted to start making videos. And then I built a website, which was going to be a media outlet. That was like my big idea.
Amazing.
It's called spityourgame.com. So I started filming all the artists. And website took off.
But you filmed them like just by yourself with a cam, like following them walking around?
Yeah.
Or like,
this is mini DV cam.
Amazing. Or like 90s then or what? Like
No. This was 2005.
So still like the cassettes, what they call them, right? The sort of medium-sized cassette ones.
Yep.
So cool. And the tiny, you look through the little camera, it's got a tiny screen at the end.
That's right. So website takes off, but I wasn't making enough money to not go to college. Okay. And my mom, she was a little tough on me. She's like, if you don't go to college, you're going to pay rent. And I was like, oh God, I don't have enough money for paying rent. I said, how much is rent? She said $600. It was her way of making sure I go to college.
That's pretty good.
So I go to community college. I'm just buying time, but I'm still running my business. And one day I get a phone call and it was a 310 number. Uh-huh. And it said Beverly Hills on the caller ID. Yeah. And I'm from Atlanta. I've never had Beverly. Like, this is before spam calls. Exactly. This was real deal. And I answered the phone, and this gentleman, he had the deepest voice. It almost sounded like God was calling me. And he said, is this Charlie Jabbely? I said, yes, it is. He said, this is Brian Washington from Interscope Records.
No way. I
said, how may I help you, Mr. Washington? He said, we just signed an artist and he requested that you cover his tour, his world tour. And I said, I would absolutely love to. Who's the artist? And he said, his name is Soulja Boy. I said, I know who Soulja Boy is. And he said, we would need you to start immediately. I'm standing on the college campus and I'm talking to Mr. Washington. And I said to him, I would love to go, but I need to ask my mom if I could drop out of school. He said, how old are you? I said, I'm 18. He said, okay, good. Go ask your mom and call me back. So I go home. And my mom, she's a vacuum cleaner saleswoman. Amazing. So door-to-door vacuum. So she knows when she's about to get something sold to her. She knows what a sales pitch looks like. And so I asked her, I said, Ma, like, I want to go on tour with this artist. The record label just called me. I didn't say rapper. I just said artist. And she said, is it a rapper? I said, yeah. I could see her eyes.
She wasn't like that one.
She was like, oh, sex, drugs, tour, like my sweet little baby. I said, Ma, this is entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
I'm a businessman. And she all of a sudden turned into Mr. Miyagi. She put her arms behind her back and she's like walking back and forth. And I'm like, who are you? And I learned one thing from sales. Whoever speaks first loses. Because I used to sell vacuum cleaners too.
That's amazing.
Very humble beginnings. And so I stood there in silence and she turned around and she said to me, when a door opens, you have to walk through it.
Wow.
My mom has always believed in my dreams. But she also said, you're going to pay rent. I said, but I'm not even going to be here. If your stuff is here, you're paying rent.
Oh, wow.
And so I go on tour. It was magnificent. Got to work with some of the biggest artists, meet the biggest artists in the world. But 6 months in, I got fired. And I wasn't a good employee at all. But this is really crazy. They didn't even tell me I was fired. I was at the airport. We're supposed to go to the Jimmy Kimmel show.
Yeah.
Album just came out. The next day, we're flying to Jimmy Kimmel to do the big performance on national television. And I didn't get the itinerary the night before.
Yeah.
So I just go to the airport. We go to the airport every day. We travel every day. So I'm just following the protocol. I go to the airport. Nobody's answering my phone calls. I'm kind of being iced. And after about 4 hours out of the airport, I realized, wow, I think I'm fired. Like it's
just a bit harsh now.
Yeah, not to even tell me.
Yeah.
And so I ride the bus home and I tell my mom and I said, Ma, I think I'm fired. And she said, oh, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I said, no. I said, this is a winning streak. She said, what do you mean? I said, on the ride home, I was thinking about it. I'm the cameraman. That's not my destiny. I'm the lowest paid person on the team.
All right.
I said, I'm going to be a manager now. I'm going to be the highest paid person on the team. She said, you're not upset? I said, no, this is a winning streak. I would have never quit. It was too big of an opportunity. And so
most people would see that as defeat, right? And get depressed and sad and everything. The fact that you're able to mentally flip it around is amazing.
I don't think anything ever has happened to me that's bad in my life. Is it like frustrating, but not bad?
When you realize everything happens for a reason, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I went on to sign a girl group. I did what I told
in
my
Atlanta
mom.
at the time.
It was a girl group.
Yeah.
And they were like the future in my eyes. They were like a female version of Outkast. If Outkast was like teenage girls, Disney Channel meets Outkast. I was like, this is great. They sing and rap. I was like, they're the future. And I got them a record deal. And it was like my opportunity to be successful. I was like, getting them a record deal is a big deal. It's a lot different than being a cameraman. And we're doing a show in Washington, D.C. You ever had anybody just like get mad at you, but like for no reason, but they're looking for a reason to be mad at you?
Yeah, happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Okay. So they're doing a show.
Yeah.
And then we're at the airport again. And they weren't talking to me. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why aren't y'all standing near me, talking to me? Like, they said, you didn't give us water.
What?
And I'm thinking to myself, oh God, what? Excuse me? It doesn't make any sense. Come to find out, there was a gentleman in Washington, D.C. who got in their ear that wanted them to sign with Sierra's manager, who's big pop star singer's manager. And so they just looked at that as an opportunity to want to leave me. And so they needed something to be wrong. And there I am in the airport, and I realize I think I'm fired again. Now I have a contract, but it's like I'm not going to sue them.
Yeah.
Like I don't have the energy. And I go back to my mom's house again, and I said, "Mom, I think I'm fired." And she obviously felt bad for me. And I said, "No, this is going to be a win." She said, "How is this a win?" I said, "These girls were difficult. It was not it wasn't feeding me. I need to sign a group that doesn't give me a hard time, that I just enjoy. And so I signed a guy group, and I took every ounce of my energy and I just poured into them. And I was of servitude. And I said, I'm never getting fired again. And I would pass out CDs every single night outside of the nightclubs. And I would reinvest my own money. And I would drive to every radio station from Jackson, Mississippi to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And we had 3 records, top 10 in the nation without a record deal.
That's amazing.
My career took off, and I built one of the biggest management companies. I signed an artist who I was a massive fan of. And nobody else really wanted to touch him, but I knew he was a star. I've always had like this gift of seeing around the corner of like what's next. I could see something special that other people can't see yet.
Yeah.
I know they'll see it, but I've always had this around the corner gift. And I signed this artist. His name was 2 Chainz. Yeah. And we went from $2,000 a show to $250,000 a show.
Wow.
And every day I would manifest. And I had on the background of my phone this like music festival. And at the time, like hip hop artists don't really perform at music festivals unless you're Eminem or, you know, like the biggest artist in the world. And I had this background on my phone. I was like, we're going to perform in front of this sea of people. And just a year later, I'm at Coachella. And it was so surreal for me because I grew up in the 90s. And here's my artist performing at Coachella in front of a sea of people, and we're bringing out one of my favorite childhood bands to perform on our set, Fall Out Boy.
Success.
I'm like, as a child, I would listen to Fall Out Boy, and now we're bringing them out on our set in the sea of people, and I'm looking at my phone, and I'm looking at the sea of people, and I'm like, dreams really do come true.
That is amazing, eh?
And
Beautiful.
Everything was a win.
And I've noticed that in your story, there's an important part of like manifestation that you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
But it seems to have been there from day one for you. Did your mother teach you this? Did anyone teach you this? Where did it come from? Because normally most people have to like find these things through a guru, through like conventions, through a workshop, through a retreat. They find someone who they follow, and then they learn about the power of, manifestation through the mind, right, into the physical reality.
As many interviews as I've done, nobody's asked me that question. I love that question because it's like actually like jogging my brain.
Well, because it's really early on. Normally as kids, we don't really even think about that. But you were thinking about it like, what, 18? I mean, that's super young.
I think for me, there was an accidental version of it. And then later on, it got very, very intentional. And I experienced a lot of magic. But this is the early version. The early version as a kid is through practice. I would practice something. I want something. When I see something light up my eyes, I know that's meant for me. Like if it made my heart sing, I was like, okay, this is not my brain thinking. Yeah. This was something else. And so let me go that way. So that was my first little indicator of if I do this thing that makes my heart sing, it's not just going to be 1 + 1 = 2. It will be 1 + 1 = a bigger number because it's not just going to be me doing the work. Yeah. So I would go after those things and I would always be guided. Like I would always be gifted something outside of myself. And then in the music business, I actually lost a lot of my faith, which was interesting. I think it actually might be a natural occurrence for people in their 20s. But I grew up going to a Catholic church with my grandfather. I loved it. I loved hanging out with my grandfather. But then when he died and I got into the music industry, I stopped praying and I stopped manifesting. To me, it's all the same thing. So like I became mathematical. And I was like, if I do this, I will get this. Yeah. And it worked for the mathematical part of my business life. And then at the height of my career in the music business, I got sick with a brain tumor. It was very invasive. Yeah. It grew. It was wrapped around my eye. It was corroding the top of my spine. I was 300 pounds. I was very sick. Yeah. And I was looking at my life and I was looking at this as, is this a winning streak? It has to be. Like this has to be a gift. So when you're faced with a really tough situation, I like close my eyes and I'll look at like these doors.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I can find the good in this, I can walk through that door and it's just like this like curtain is unveiled of all these possibilities.
Yeah.
There's possibilities behind finding the good.
Yeah.
And the bad is a loop that plays over and over and it doesn't stop. But the good is like magic. So I said, maybe I'm not supposed to be in the music industry. Maybe the brain tumor is a gift so that I can go chase my childhood dream that I never chased. Because when I was a kid, before business, before music, before making money, my dream was sports.
There you go.
When I walked onto a basketball court and I saw the lights glisten off of the floor, I was obsessed. But then you get to a certain age, I'm too slow. I'm too chubby. This is not realistic. Being an athlete, the dream of being an athlete is not realistic. I need to do something that is
it's dependent on physical condition, training every day, discipline. You have to, it's a whole lifestyle change.
But what company did I love more than any company in the world as a child? Nike.
Nike. I was going to say that was the original one that sponsored all the sports people before.
That's
anyone.
right. I loved it.
Yeah.
But I gave up on that dream. So here I am, 28 years old, with a brain tumor, 300 pounds, morbidly obese. And I started being a delusional optimist that, no, this is a win. I'm going to leave the music industry. I'm going to let go of my business.
Yeah.
I'm going to give my shares to my business partners, and I'm going to go be an athlete. I'm actually going to be a Nike athlete, and I'm actually going to be in commercials with LeBron James and Serena Williams. Can you imagine the look on my friends' faces?
You're nuts. Exactly.
Do you know what my business partners thought?
What?
They're like, well, hold on. We have an empire, and you're going to go run?
You're going to leave.
You're going to like run. Like you're going to like go on a jog. like you don't play for the Lakers.
You crazy, man.
You're not in the Olympics.
Yeah.
How are you going to make a career out of this? And that was a question my mom asked, because parents just want stuff to post about their kids on Facebook. And my mom, she was like, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but I believe this is possible and I'm going to do it. So I left the music business. I started running. I did 5 marathons.
5.
I rode my bicycle across America. I lost 130 pounds. It was the first time in my life I was not stressed. My body healed in miraculous ways.
Oh, clearly.
And I haven't fully solved all my health challenges, but when I remove stress from my life,
you feel better.
My brain tumor shrunk.
Absolutely.
I lost weight.
Stress causes inflammation.
Oh God, does it? And so this is where it got magical. I dreamed really big, and the magic flowed into my life. As a delusional optimist, I said, I'm going to film a fan-made Nike commercial. Nike's going to see it. Nike's going to sign me, and Nike's going to put me in commercials with LeBron James and Serena Williams. Yeah. That's about as delusional as it gets, but that's actually where the magic is.
Yeah.
Like, you could put your pinky toe in a pool, and a wave might not bounce back. But if you cannonball, the waves are going to be sent out, and what's coming back? All the waves. And the waves are just energy. And I believe if this is the dream that I see in my heart, it's already done. Time hasn't caught up yet. I can close my eyes and I can see it. Nobody else can. But that's kind of the definition of somebody who's delusional. It's somebody who is a crazy person. They see things. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, it's only crazy until you do it.
Until it physically appears in the world.
And then everybody would be like, oh, you're a genius. Yeah. So I wanted to film a fan-made Nike commercial. But a fan-made Nike commercial isn't just like an Instagram clip. It needs to be properly done. And that can be very expensive. So I started calling around my Hollywood producer friends. And they said, first thing out of their mouth, Charlie, what's your budget? I was like, I don't know.
Budget.
They're like, you need to prepare for about $80,000 if you want to shoot a low grade Nike commercial, like really like small agency budget.
Simple,
I said, I'm not spending, I have money. I'm not, there's a down payment on the house. I'm not doing that. Like, mm-mm. And I was like, I'll spend a few $1,000. They're like, Charlie, you need to be realistic. I was like, I don't like when people tell me to be realistic. I was like, okay, let me break this down. So they're like, you need somebody who could shoot, somebody who could edit. Because in the film world, person doesn't do the same. You need somebody who can score the original music. Because scoring is everything. Like Hans Zimmer strings to make it emotional. That's expensive. Then you need somebody who has the equipment, or you need to rent the equipment. We're talking about anamorphic lenses. We're talking about lighting. We're talking about dolly tracks.
And all the people to operate it all.
And then you need color grading on top of that.
Color adjustments,
So I'm like, no, I'll find somebody who can do it all. And I went out to lunch at this vegan restaurant in LA called Gracias Madres.
I know that one, yeah.
And I took John Legend's manager with me because I knew he knew all the Hollywood people, and he brought this guy with him. And I told him what I'm trying to do. He says, Charlie, you need to be realistic. And I was like, why do people keep saying this to me? I walk out of the restaurant with John Legend's manager, and I said to him, tomorrow, I'm going to find this person who's going to film this. Watch. And I was like angry, but I'm like using my anger in almost like a high frequency, not like a low negative. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm like declaring. It's almost like a mantra.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to. And the next morning, I'm in Santa Monica. I'm in my house. I'm living with 4 roommates. I left the music industry. I didn't know if I'd ever make money again. I'm pretty frugal. I'm living with 4 roommates, and I'm sitting on my couch, and I'm writing in my manifestation notebook. I call it my quantum possibilities notebook because I like the possibilities. That's my favorite thing. And I said, today is the day I searched/found my videographer/editor. It's done! ! It's easy! ! Filled with all my other dreams on the page. And next thing I know, my roommate Morgan walks through the front door. Now Morgan, he has a cameraman behind him. But Morgan should not have a cameraman behind him because Morgan does like business development for a goji berry company.
Oh my God.
And there's no reason why like a cameraman with a big old rig is following him. I said, Morgan, why do you have a cameraman behind you? He said, my friend Manny called and he wanted to shoot something for his Airbnb business. So he sent this guy over. And I said, you do videos? And the first words out of his mouth, the videographer, it was like a dark cloud. He's like, yeah, I do videos, but nobody ever pays me. The only reason why I'm doing this video is because they had a Lamborghini and I wanted it for my portfolio. I was like, oh God, I'm like colorful, bubbly. And I'm like, okay, dark cloud entered the room. So I kind of lost hope, but I said, can I see some of your work? He said, yeah, but I haven't updated my website in years. I said, oh God, I was looking at my notebook. I was thinking this was about to be a magical moment. His mouth opens and I'm like, all right.
Rip the page out.
I open my laptop. I pull up his website and he had a little short film on there. And if somebody knows how to make a short film, like that takes real work.
Yeah.
Like that's not like a music video. That's real work. And so I said, did you shoot this? Because it's really good. He said, yeah, I shot it. I said, did you edit it? Because shooters aren't always editors. He said, yeah, I edited it. I said, who did the scoring on this? Because the shooter and the editor never makes music. Never. He said, well, I used to be in a rock band 15 years ago. We were on the Warped Tour, but then the record label dropped us. I said, hold on.
God.
I said, you make music? He said, yeah. I said, who did all the sound effects and stuff? He said, I did all that. I said, who mixed and mastered the audio? He said, well, I'm an audio engineer. I have a studio in my bedroom. I said, do you own all the equipment that you shot this with? He said, I'm kind of a hoarder. So anytime I make any money, I just buy equipment. I have like a whole locker full of stuff. I said, who did the color grading? He said, I did it on DaVinci. I said, look at my notebook. I said I was going to find you. I said, can I hire you? He said, what do you want to hire me for? I said, you and I are going to make a fan-made Nike commercial. Nike's going to see it, and Nike's going to want to sign me, and my dream is going to come true. He said, "You're crazy." I said, "I know, but it's going to work." I said, I asked him, I said, "How much will this cost?" He said, $650.
Your rent.
Now I'm skeptical. And I said, "Why $650? Did he really make this short film?" Is the first question.
Yeah.
He said, "Well, we need 2 PVC pipes." I said, "Oh God, this sounds interesting." "And we need a 10-foot PVC pole, and we need 2 belts, and we need a skateboard, and we need to rent an anamorphic lens. But if we rent it on a Friday, we can keep it all weekend and return it on Monday."
Nice little trick.
And I told him my vision, and we made a fan-made Nike commercial that when I uploaded to my little 10,000 followers on Instagram, it went so viral.
That's amazing.
And 3 days later, I'm in my living room, and my phone rings. And the caller ID says Beaverton, Oregon.
No way. That's the head of Nike, right? The offices.
I'm shaking looking at my phone, and I'm trying to be calm. I answer the phone, and I said, "Hello?" He said, "Is this Charlie Rocket?" I said, "Yes, it is. How can I help you?" He said, "This is Andy Miguel from Nike. We don't know how you managed to get our entire campus in a frenzy, but everybody's fighting over who's going to bring you here.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Can we fly you up next week?" I said, "Absolutely." They put me on a plane. They put me in a limousine. And when I'm walking on campus, people started like clapping.
No way.
And I'm thinking to myself, what? One of the employees walked up to me and said, "They don't treat LeBron James like this. They must be up to something." I was thinking, I'm going, they're going to give me some shoes. They're going to do their little philanthropy thing. Let me take a picture, be like, "We did our good
go
deed."
back home again and that's it.
But instead, they walked me into a conference room that had 30 of the biggest executives at the company. And on all the TVs, it was me. And they said, "Charlie, have a seat." I said, "What is going on? Am I in a dream?" Like, that's what I'm thinking. But yes, I am in a dream, literally, the physical
In
version.
your dream.
And they said, "You have inspired us to change the direction of our company." I said, "Excuse me? This is a Dow 30 company."
That's amazing.
And I know their marketing plans are built out years in advance. They said, "We're going to change the marketing plan this year based upon this concept because we forgot about people's dreams."
Wow.
It became about the shoes. It became about athletes jumping high and running fast.
Yeah.
And as aspirational as that is, it's not always inspirational. But this film that you made, we were toying with the idea years ago and we never did it. But you activated it in us. So they actually gave me a astronaut backpack as a gift.
No
Charlie Rocket custom.
That's so cool.
And I made a second fan-made Nike commercial. I didn't know what they had planned, but I made a second fan-made Nike commercial. It was called Dream Crazy. And I wrote the greatest script I've ever written in my life. Yeah. And that commercial turned into what became the biggest Nike commercial of all time.
That's amazing.
And I'm standing in El Segundo, California. And I get a phone call from a gentleman at Nike named Tim. And he says, "Charlie, are you sitting down?" I said, I can be. He said, "Have a seat." Sat on the grass, right? I was running around the track. And he said, "I'm going to send you an email. And in this email, it's going to have a password. And it's going to have an NDA." I said, "Oh, this is going to be good." I was like, I like NDAs because I know this is big. Right. And I sat down and I watched a commercial that had me in it, LeBron James in it, Serena Williams in it. And we won an Emmy. And it was the biggest Nike commercial of all time.
It's an incredible story. And
my dream came true. And all my friends who thought I was a little crazy.
That's the way it is.
And when they said, "How did you do this?" I said, "I saw it." And so I was crazy enough to do it because when I closed my eyes and I literally see it, I knew it was already done. Time just hadn't caught up yet.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I don't know if you've realized over time with when you have a crazy dream, because I had a crazy dream as well. And what I've realized over time is like a lot of the times in the past I failed myself because I've had this crazy dream, but so many people have told me I'm crazy that I haven't done it. But then I've realized in the end that the more people tell me I'm crazy, the more I have to do it.
That's
And the
right.
more you have to do it because it's the right thing to do.
That's
So if a
right.
lot of people tell me I'm crazy, now I know it's the thing I have to do.
You have to.
Right?
I mean, you have to.
You're right.
And
It's
you're
like-
doing it.
Because you've got to do it, man. Because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And then what a shame not to manifest this, what may seem crazy in the world, but the world needs different ideas and different concepts and different things to keep pushing us to a better version of ourselves, no?
How would you articulate your crazy dream?
My crazy dream at the time was to build a resort based on health and wellness, where all the menus were healthy, where all the programming was included, where people would come here and transform and become a better version of themselves and always learn something new. And hopefully they will come here, awaken, and go into the world and teach everyone what they learned. And that sounded fucking crazy 8 years ago. Everyone said, "You're nuts, man," as well. But I could see it in my head as well. I could see it finished in my head. I closed my eyes and I could see it all. The spaces, the tech, and I can, like you, I think I visualized something, I can see it.
Yeah.
Right, so I could just have to build it, right? Which is the complicated part, no? But yeah, but you still build it. And when it's done, then you need sales and then you all the other part, right? But the manifestation in the physical reality comes from a vision in your mind, which is linked to your subconscious, which is probably linked to divinity, God, whatever you want to call it, right?
Mhm.
So that was my next question to you.
Okay.
Because the way you talk, really, what I feel is like I've read a lot of books on subconscious manifestations and things, and there's a great one called "The Power of the Subconscious Mind" by The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Stephen Murphy. Is it? Can't remember now. But anyway, he was a pastor in a
I've
church,
read that book.
right?
Yeah.
But it's amazing because he refers to God as superconsciousness, as divinity, but he just calls it God, which is what it is.
Mhm.
And if you ask God for anything, it will manifest. But all you're doing is you're creating the belief in your subconscious mind, implanting it into the subconscious mind, which is linked to divinity, God, right?
That's right.
But what I've seen about you is that you seem to be able to do that really quickly.
I can.
Because most people, when they get an idea and they want to manifest it, the methods are have to say it over and over, write it over and over for months until it happens.
Yeah.
But you seem to be lightning quick.
Want me to tell you my little secret?
Yeah, please. I love all this.
I toggle between two frequencies. The delusional kind of like it's kind of like the gravity free, like
Yeah.
rainbows and butterfly.
Yeah.
I like being there.
Yeah.
I like being in the future.
Yeah.
The future's really fun.
Yeah.
I don't like being in the present. People say
pretty
be in the
dense,
present.
yeah.
The present sometimes
Pretty
sucks.
dense, yeah.
And I really just like living in the future. So I try to be there as much as possible. So when I wake up, I'll get in my notebook. Just
Before you go to sleep as well. So you're thinking of that already when you go to sleep as well.
I'm subconsciously always thinking
Yeah,
of it.
because when you go to sleep, if you think about it, right, and it implants into your subconscious mind as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then I toggle to another frequency. And this is the one that I actually think speeds it up. I get mad,
Interesting.
but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Not like you're mad at somebody. When you're mad at somebody, like you get an altercation with
Yeah.
somebody, that loop turns off all other things.
Yeah.
And it's like a negative loop.
Yeah, well, it becomes like your conscious mind gets taken over by these thoughts which are negative anyway, which you don't want, right?
It's like walking on an elevator
Yeah.
and like you get no reception.
Yeah.
That's what that is. It is an elevator and you lose connection to everything. The type of mad that I'm talking about, it really speeds things up. I'll give you an example. This isn't technically a manifestation of a dream, but it was a manifestation of something that happened. My management team made a mistake, and they're having a meeting with somebody I hate, I dislike, and I'm like, and they know I dislike him. And we're sitting there at a restaurant. They're like, "Yeah, we're about to meet with," and I'm like, "Why would y'all do that? Like, this is my enemy. Like, why would y'all allow him to think he has access to my people?" And I'm like mad, but not in a toxic way. I'm just like, 5 minutes later, they get a text message from that gentleman. It's like, "I just got in a little fender bender. I'm not going to be able to make it to the meeting." And they look at me and they're like, "Charlie, how do you do that?" I was just like, I really didn't want y'all to meet with him. And when I think about my dreams, I get mad. Like, I wanted to meet the gentleman who's going to make my video.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me to be realistic.
Yeah.
It's no,
okay.
you're not going to tell me that.
So you're almost canceling out the conscious mind part of it, that everyone's implanting the idea into your conscious mind, because that then goes into your subconscious.
And I overpower it with.
And the one you want goes into the subconscious, I'm assuming then, right?
I put a lot of fire into the dream.
Yeah.
And it toggles from rainbows and butterflies to like this burning fire of like, no, this has to happen.
Yeah.
And it has to happen now. There's another thing, and I don't know if anybody's ever explained this, or maybe you have experienced it. There's been some times in my life where I've needed something financially to happen for me. And I can do this on repeat, and I've done it about 4 or 5 times in my life. And when I need a financial blessing, I go on a walk on a mountain, a hike. I live in California. I live in Malibu.
Yeah.
Most recently, a couple of years ago, I just needed something to happen for my business. I was like, it's time. I went on this walk, and I just visualized an orb of light.
Yeah.
And I like catch it like it's a football. And then I witness another one, and I catch it. And I witness another one, and I catch it. And I like visualize these like orbs of light falling from the sky. And within a week, it's always, just money's pouring in. And I don't do this all the time because I don't think about money every day. But when times where I've needed to do this, I think it's like 5 for 5. I was in the shower one time in Manhattan Beach at an Airbnb, and I closed my eyes and I saw it, and it happened. It worked again. Yeah. And then I did it a couple months ago. It worked again. And I'm just like, what is it about watching these orbs of light? And I just catch it and put it in my pocket. But then it just attracts money. I don't know how.
Amazing.
But things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Manifesting the invisible, because there's lots more beyond the physical, right? That we don't know how necessarily, we're not taught how to interact with the invisible, right? We're taught to interact with the physical world, which is like linked to the conscious mind, right?
That's
so
right.
yeah, amazing. So you've connected really the subconscious to the divine in order to manifest in this reality, I think, Amazing.
Absolutely.
So after Nike, where did they take you? what got manifested next?
I asked myself a question. I was like, well, all my dreams came true. I'm very successful in the music industry. I've been very fortunate financially. I got my dream. Everything else felt selfish after that. I said, what's the next level? And I was like, let's help people.
Amazing.
And so I started a nonprofit helping kids with cancer. And that took off. It took off. And I got about 9 million followers on social media.
Yeah.
People just loved it. And through that, I lost my health. It was stress all over again.
The stress,
it was, I created an organization that really, really helped people. Similar to my artist. Yeah. But instead of helping my artist,
help you, though.
I'm helping kids. And no, it did not help me at all.
Maybe that's the lesson, eh? You need to help yourself first.
I am finally there.
Charlie first, others second.
I've redesigned. After 7 years of doing the nonprofit, I learned my lesson. Yeah. And I went on a journey this time last year to restructure my life, to heal me, but to still check every box. I still want to make impact. Exactly. I still want to live an interesting life.
You should be able to. You can do.
And so I've successfully done it, and I've entered into a new chapter of my life, and I'm excited.
Amazing.
To be able to have proof to myself that I can have nothing short of everything that I desire. I don't want to compromise. I want nothing short of everything that I see in my mind. Yeah. And I don't want to get to the end and be like,
regrets.
Probably think about only the things.
Do, right?
So I'm really on a mission to live a very interesting life, a very impactful life, a life full of reinvention and pivots and dreams. And one of my biggest dreams is just to get my friends and family out of scarcity. Yeah, that's one of my big ones.
Yeah, and what's your next big dream then, apart from that then?
My health again.
Yeah, health, right.
My health is...
so important.
That is the dream.
Everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's everything. Yeah, health is everything.
So I'm learning every day.
I hope that being here, you'll be able to learn something and we can contribute to your health as well, right?
This is my 5th time.
It's amazing. 5 times already? I thought it was like
This is
that.
my 5th
I
time.
didn't know it was 5, really.
5th time.
That's amazing.
It is, honestly, I came to Palmaïa very early
Yeah.
and I loved it. But then I forgot until I started going to other nice resorts. And every time I would go to a nice resort, whether it's in like Hawaii or somewhere, it's like, this really makes me appreciate Palmaïa. like it's like
That's amazing.
Palmaïa's
Thank
not
you.
normal. Like it's like to sit down at a dinner and not have to pay $300-400 every time you eat.
Yeah, just eliminating the stress of money, right? Because I truly believe that the real enslavement system of humanity in our soul is money. Money is the enslavement system of humanity, right? And it's all we think about because what we're going to pay, the rent, the interest rates, the bank loan, the this. I'm not going to make it to this. There's always the loans, the this, the cash flow. We spend all day looking at, especially if we're in a business, you're always looking at goddamn numbers to make sure everything's okay, right? Money is the enslavement system of our mind. So here you come, you pay once, right? But the fact that this what really inspired me is obviously I have all-inclusive businesses since and family businesses since forever, right? But what really made me live it was when I went to Burning Man, because in Burning Man there's no money. Everyone's just gifting to everyone, right? And that week I spent in Burning Man of no money made me feel like I was there for like 3 months. And the day I left, I remember I drove to San Francisco, and I got there and I was really tired. I went to sleep, and the next morning I woke up and I was walking to San Francisco. Almost, it felt like I was walking in a matrix. I wasn't even there, right? It was really weird feeling hitting reality again. I went into this Indian restaurant, ordered a dosa, ate, and I walked out without paying. And they came after me. Hey, you haven't paid. Like, oh, shit, sorry. So imagine like this disconnection of money really does heal you. Like it becomes like, it's like, and here when you're here, I think the most important thing is to make it all inclusive, although I don't really like calling it all inclusive because people think about things and think of endless buffets and that, but it is important to not have money here, because it's part of the healing, I think.
It is.
To be able to disconnect and be able to think of other things, to have the privilege of thinking of spirituality and health instead of worrying about being shortchanged and signing checks all day long, right?
Oh, God. Yeah, that's always been the asterisk beside any vacation that I go on that's not Palmaïa. It's literally,
money.
I'll go, I'll enjoy, but there's an asterisk 3 times a day that was not enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's because I live in a scarcity mindset.
No,
I'm sure
reminded
so
of
many
it all the
people
time,
do.
right? Yeah.
Like I grew up in a family that just scarcity with money mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's installed in me. I'm frugal with my money, but it's like every time I'm sitting down to eat, I'm like, but then I'm here. It's so sensational that I'll get up and I'm like, I can just walk out right now.
Exactly.
I can just
walk
out.
Yeah.
It's great. No, it's you created the most amazing thing. I'm so glad you chased your dream. Thank you in a selfish way.
We did. We all chase our dreams, right? Hopefully our dreams can create impact, which is what we both want, I think, really, no?
That's right.
That's amazing. Well, Charlie, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for coming back for the 5th time. That's incredible. Let's hope we make it the 6th soon. And is there anything you'd like to tell our tribe? We're going to be posting all your links as well at the bottom of the interview so they can follow you and see all the amazing work you're doing. And any final words before we close down?
I say any takeaway that you take from this, just if you have that dream, be delusional in the pursuit of it. It's already done. Time hasn't caught up yet. It's just you got to be delusional in the pursuit and believe it.
So follow that dream, everyone. Amazing. Thank you so much, Charlie.
All right, Alex.
Amazing.
Every day I'm rising to my inner vision.